Hey, what's up YouTube? Welcome to the We All Juggle Knives channel. In this video I'm going to tell you how I made this throwing knife for only $3 using a BBQ skewer. And then I'm going to show you how it throws with some no-spin throwing. So I made this from a BBQ skewer. You can see some of the other skewers there. Now the skewers cost about $6 each, and depending on how long you want your throwing knife to be, one skewer can make 2 or 3 throwing knives. Therefore, this throwing knife cost me about $3 in materials. All right, plus the work of actually making it, but I kind of find that fun. I made this with just a Dremel and my work sharp, all right? So this is my Dremel 4000. It's a pretty useful little tool. Step 1, you need to cut the BBQ skewer to the length that you want your throwing knife to be, and longer knives are usually easier and hit harder, so maybe 9 inches, maybe 11 inches. So there you see, you can cut the skewers with a Dremel, but I would actually recommend like an angle grinder, and you can also use a hacksaw if it comes to that. Okay, the next thing you have to do is change the shape from that shape to the more rounded shape you see there, right? You see that? So step 2 would be remove that material to make the throwing knife the shape you want. Now that is a grinding attachment that you can get for the Dremel, and you just remove that material until it's the shape you want. Now I actually would not recommend using a Dremel for this. I would recommend using like larger, more powerful tools. Okay, but if you don't have access to those, yeah, you can shape it like that with a grinding attachment. Okay, step 3 would be to drill a hole there, and there's another hole, hard to see, but there's another hole right there. So you want to drill 2 holes into the skewer, and that allows you to thread your paracord through the holes and then make a handle wrap for your throwing knife. Now, in order to make those holes, I used an engraving attachment. You're not supposed to drill straight in with an engraving attachment, so I did not. I came in at an angle, right? If you try to drill straight through, there's a good chance that your engraving attachment could shatter or explode. I just want to make that clear. So really, if you have a drill press, I would drill the hole with a drill press, but if you don't, you know, you have to come in at an angle, and an engraving attachment basically makes a divot. And then you make a divot on top of that, and it'll eventually break through, but Dremel does not recommend drilling with that, so make sure you know how to engrave. All right, and the final step, you know, when you cut and remove material and so forth, it's rough. Like you see how rough that part is that I cut for a different type of throwing knife. So I have my work sharp here. That's the Ken Onion work sharp. And I would recommend just using that to smooth out the places that you cut, right? Just smooth out the places that you cut, and yeah, just to finish shaping it with that work sharp or a file. Okay, so do you want to see how this throws? This was my very first throwing session. There is the finished throwing knife or throwing shank. I'm going to be throwing no spin type of throwing from fairly close, right? I was just getting used to the knife. Yeah, and I also wanted to be able to film this all in one take because my my time for filming was limited, right? So I pretty much almost can't miss at this distance. Now, if you've never thrown before, you could still miss, okay? So be careful. When you throw a knife, there's always a chance it can rebound off a target, especially if it over-rotates or under-rotates. Like knives and tomahawks can actually rebound back and they can hit you in the face. So exercise extreme caution. You know, consider wearing protective equipment and so forth. But I had a lot of fun with this knife, but there's one thing you should know about these BBQ skewers and the steel. They are not hardened like a knife would be. Not hardened. Right? So they have some give to them, and the skewers and the knife can bend. Now, if your skewer knife bends, I just bend it back into shape carefully, right? But I want you to know that it can bend. Now, since this clip, I've actually thrown this hundreds and hundreds of times, and I have had to bend it back into shape several times. But I mean, I've gotten hundreds and hundreds of throws out of it so far, and eventually it might just get completely destroyed, but that's okay. You know, it only cost me $3. It's already paid for itself as far as the amount of fun I've been able to have with it. And I could just make more because the skewers are very inexpensive, right? So if it does bend, don't panic. If it does bend, leave it in the target and carefully just bend it back in the other direction, and that's how you're going to get the longest life out of it. Alright, I hope you enjoyed that clip. In the next clip, I changed the camera angle a little bit so you can see my hand. Yeah, doing some flipping there. Alright, so you can see my hand a little better. You can see how the wrist goes if you want to learn no-spin throwing. As you can see my hand, I basically bend my wrist back to chamber it. Then I kind of flick it almost. And there's a diagonal follow-through. Alright, so that's how I do the no-spin throwing. Yeah, so this has definitely been a fun little project for me. I wouldn't recommend using a Dremel unless that's all you have. If you have no power tools at all, you could use a hacksaw and a metal file, but it would definitely take a long time. But yeah, if you're a knife maker or a machinist, I would say just use bigger, better, more powerful tools. The only reason I used a Dremel is because it was new. Like, I had just gotten that Dremel, and I just wanted to try out my new toy. Kind of like it was like a challenge. Like, what can you do with only the Dremel? All right. I do recommend that Dremel for small projects and crafts and things like that. But a lot of my viewers are actually knife makers or machinists, and you guys pretty much don't need it. You know, you already have better stuff. But for people that just don't have a whole knife maker's worth of equipment in the garage, yeah, you can use a Dremel if it comes to that. Yeah, I mean, you can use a Dremel. All right, takes a while. Last throw. Bam. All right, so I hope you enjoyed seeing this throw. There's some other stuff. I didn't make that kunai. That's an S-Tech kunai, but I made the spikes and the spikes with handle wraps and so forth. All right, so I hope you've been enjoying this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Okay, I got some slow motion in case you want to see. This is for people wanting to see how to throw. All right, as you can see, I mean, still pretty fast, but you can see the hand motion. I don't know if that helps you to become better throwers, but it's kind of a wave motion if you look at it. So that's how I throw. I'm not the best thrower, but I enjoy it for sure. You know, I just like to do my thing on here. In the text description box, I'm going to include a huge number of useful links for you. I will include some links to the BBQ skewers that I use. And, you know, you can buy a 2-pack. I think they have a 6-pack and 8-pack. I will also include links to the rebar tent stakes that I use to make my throwing spikes. I will include a link to paracord in bulk so that you can make the handle wraps for your throwing items. All right, here's me just kind of screwing around, having some fun. We'll go out with that. I will also include a link to my Dremel 4000. Like I said, I actually do recommend it for small jobs and just like little projects like this and craft type tasks. I'll also include a link to the Work Sharp, which is very useful as a knife sharpener, hatchet sharpener. It'll sharpen lawnmower blades and things like that, and you can use it to grind on these throwing knives as well. So the Work Sharp. And for those who don't want to bother with all this work, I'll include a list of budget-priced throwing knives, and you can just buy sets of throwing knives. And I will include a list of tomahawks as well, because tomahawks are what got me started with throwing. And I will include a list of elite throwing knives that are very expensive, but they're handmade and they're worth it. So if you've got the scratch, you can buy those elite throwing knives. Check that all out in the text description box below this video. Those links do help support the channel, and I really appreciate you using them. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you like crazy stuff like this, along with knife reviews, multi-tool reviews, and so forth. This has been We All Juggle Knives. I'm out.